True mates were supposed to be blessings from the moon, not public executions. That's what every story had promised Mira Ashfern when she was a little Omega, staring up at the silver sky and pretending someone important might one day choose her. Instead, she was standing alone in the middle of the high court, with hundreds of wolves watching while the most powerful alpha in the kingdom rejected her like she was a clerical error. I, Rowan Blackridge, alpha of the Ironcrest pack, refused a mate bond with Mira Ashfern, he said calmly, voice echoing off the marble. She is unsuitable. Laughter rippled through the nobles. Omegas in the gallery shrank back as if they might catch her humiliation like a disease. Mira's chest burned, the mate bond pulling tight like a chain being yanked from the other end. She could have dropped her gaze. She could have whispered, "I accept, Alpha," and faded into the background like every other rejected wolf. Instead, something raw and furious rose in her. Her heart pounded. Her wolf whimpered. The king watched from his golden throne, amusement flickering in his ancient blue eyes. Mira lifted her chin. "I am Mira Ashfern," she said, voice ringing through the chamber. "Accept your rejection, Alpha Rowan Blackridge." The crowd leaned in, already satisfied. "And I reject you in return." Silence detonated through the court. For a heartbeat, even the torches seemed to stop flickering. No one ever rejected an alpha back. Not in front of the king. Not anywhere. "If you love stories where omegas stop letting alphas decide their worth," Mira added, a wild laugh bubbling in her chest, "subscribe for more stories like these and comment where you're watching from, because this is just getting started." King Theron straightened on his throne. The old wolf's aura crackled. "Mira Ashfern," he said slowly, "do you understand what you've done?" She swallowed, palms damp, but didn't look away from the king of all werewolves. "I think," she answered, "I've finally stopped being quiet." And every alpha in the room felt the shift in the air, the beginning of something none of them had planned for. For most of her life, Mira had been easy to overlook. The Ashfern enclave sat at the farthest edge of the kingdom, a sleepy border pack where failed warriors and discarded omegas went to disappear. Her wolf was small and gray, her magic, as far as anyone knew, almost non-existent. She worked in the archives, copying laws no one from her territory would ever be important enough to use. So when the royal convoy rolled into Ashfern 3 days earlier, Mira had watched from the back of the crowd, ink still on her fingers. "The king himself is coming," her foster mother Lisa had whispered, squeezing her arm. "He's leading the Moonbond confirmations this year. Imagine it, little one, an Omega from Ashfern chosen by an Alpha from the capital." Mira had smiled politely and said nothing. She didn't bother imagining things that weren't meant for her. Then Rowan Blackridge had stepped out of his car. Even from across the village square, she'd felt it. A snap in her chest, like the first crack of a storm. His storm-gray eyes had cut through the crowd and locked on hers, and the mate bond had slammed into her so hard she'd grabbed a lamppost just to stay upright. "Mate," her wolf had breathed, stunned and delighted. For a single, fragile heartbeat, Mira had seen it in his face too, recognition, wonder, the dizzy shock of the bond taking hold. Then it was gone, buried under a practiced mask of cold. "The moon must be confused," Rowan had muttered to his beta that night, not quite quietly enough. "An Omega copyist from a forgotten pack?" The goddess misfired. Mira had heard him. Of course she had. Omegas were good at being invisible. People forgot how sharp their ears could be. She spent the next 2 days pretending the bond meant nothing, while Rowan spent them pretending she didn't exist. She watched him charm high-ranking she-wolves with rich bloodlines and dangerous abilities, women the court would approve of as an Alpha King's future queen. Every time he looked her way, the bond flared hot, and every time, he turned away as if she were an infection he refused to acknowledge. By the time King Theron summoned all newly discovered mates to the capital for formal recognition, Mira already knew how this story would end. She just hadn't realized she'd be the one to change the script. The High Court of Eldergate was built for intimidation. Columns of black stone, banners bearing the sigils of 100 packs, a vaulted ceiling painted with the moon goddess in all her phases, reminders that power lived here, not at the edges where omegas like Mira scraped by. She had walked into that room prepared to be discarded quietly. Lisa had smoothed her plain dress, eyes wet with regret. "Bow your head, accept his decision, and we'll find a way to build another life somewhere far away," her foster mother had whispered. "You'll survive this." Omegas always do. Surviving wasn't the same as living, but Mira had nodded anyway. Then Rowan spoke his rejection aloud, and the court laughed, and something broke loose inside her. Not her heart, that had been fracturing from the moment his expression had shifted from awe to disgust in Ash Fern, but her fear. When she threw his words back at him, when she said, "I reject you in return," that fear shattered completely. Now, staring up at King Theron's sharp, amused gaze, Mira felt the full weight of what she'd done pressing down on her shoulders. "Your Majesty," Rowan ground out, eyes blazing. "This is absurd. An Omega cannot reject an Alpha back. The law," Mira interrupted, which made several nobles choke, "actually says something different." Every head swung toward her. Mira pointed to the pedestal beside the throne where a heavy, leather-bound volume rested. "The original lunar statutes," she said, trying not to let her voice shake. "Article 12, any bond acknowledged by both wolves may be dissolved by either, regardless of rank, so long as the rejection is spoken clearly and witnessed." She knew that passage by heart. She'd copied it enough times in the dusty Ashfern archives. She'd underlined it the night Rowan arrived, wondering idly what kind of wolf would ever be brave enough to use it. Apparently the answer had been her. Murmurs swept through the nobles. One of the robed court scholars was already fumbling through his own copy, fingers trembling. "Sire," he said at last, voice cracking, "the Omega is correct. The clause exists. It has simply never been invoked in recorded history." King Theron's eyes gleamed with sudden interest. "Fascinating," he said softly. "An Omega who reads the law more closely than my Alphas." Mira felt Rowan's fury like a storm at her back. But for the first time since the bond had snapped into place, she wasn't the one shrinking. She'd stepped into the spotlight, and the king was watching. "Do you know what follows a reciprocal rejection, child?" King Theron's voice had gentled, but the power beneath it made Mira's wolf want to roll onto her back. She forced herself to stay upright. "I know it severs the bond," she answered carefully. "We both walk away free to choose other wolves." "That is the simple version," the king agreed. "But not the full one." He gestured to the scholar. "Master Jeriel, enlighten us." Jeriel cleared his throat, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. "Under ancient law, when a mate bond is severed by both parties, the wolf who initiated the rejection owes compensation to the one who answered it," he recited. "Equivalent standing to what would have been gained through the bond." Rowan stiffened. "What?" "In the case of an Alpha," Jeriel continued, eyes flicking nervously between them, "that may include territory, rank, or influence. The rejected mate gains the right to claim an equivalent domain." The court erupted. Shocked exclamations, snarls of protest, the rustle of expensive fabrics as nobles turned to one another in outrage. Mira's knees nearly gave out. "Meaning," King Theron said smoothly, cutting through the noise, "that Mira Ashfern has just earned the legal right to claim an Alpha's holdings in compensation for your pride, Rowan Blackridge." The Alpha's face went bloodless. "This is ridiculous," he snarled. "She's an Omega from a border pack, not an Alpha. She doesn't even belong to a recognized court pack." A small, neat sound, a scroll being unfurled, cut through his objection. "About that," Rowan added, recovering quickly, "I have documentation." Mira watched, dread pooling in her stomach, as he produced a parchment stamped with scarlet wax. "Ironcrest received notice this afternoon," he said loudly, "that Lisa Ashfern, current leader of the Ashfern Enclave, has formally expelled Mira from her pack for insubordination and dishonor. Effective 3 hours before this hearing began." The scholar checked the seal, then bowed his head. The expulsion is valid, Your Majesty. Witnessed and registered. Rowan smiled without humor. So when she tried to reject me back, she was no longer a pack wolf, he said. She was a rogue. And rogues, as you know, have no standing under mate bond law. The court's mood turned on a dime. Sympathy curdled back into scorn. Mira's ears rang. Lisa. The woman who had rescued her as a nameless 5-year-old, who had braided her hair and taught her letters and kissed her forehead at night, had signed away her future before Mira even set foot in the capital. For the protection of the pack, Rowan added silkily. I'm sure. Mira stared at the parchment. For a moment she couldn't feel her hands. The king sighed, ancient and tired. The law is clear, he said. Without pack standing, Mira Ashfern cannot invoke the reciprocal clause. The Alpha's rejection stands. The humiliation should have crushed her. It almost did. But beneath the hurt, beneath the betrayal, another emotion was starting to burn. Rage. Mira turned slowly, searching the crowd until she found Lisa. The Ashfern Alpha stood near the back, sandwiched between nobles who wouldn't have let her inside the High Court on any other day. Tears streaked her cheeks. She made no move to deny the expulsion. Why? Mira asked, her voice a bare whisper that somehow carried through the chamber. Lisa flinched. He promised to protect us. She choked. The king favors him, Mira. If we angered him by tying you to his pack, Ashfern would be crushed between rival alphas. This way, he said, our borders would be safe. Our borders? Mira repeated. Just not me. You were never meant for the capital, Lisa said, every word a knife. You were always different. Strange dreams, strange power. This way, at least your pain buys safety for many. There it was, the math of power. One expendable Omega weighed against an entire pack. Mira felt something in her chest go very still. Thank you for the clarification, she said. She might have walked away then, broken, exiled, nameless. She might have found a cliff or a river and let the shame carry her under. But King Theron was still watching her with that sharp interest. The nobles were still whispering about the law she'd dared to invoke. And deep in Mira's bones, something old and sleeping stirred. Your Majesty, she said suddenly. The king arched a brow. Yes, little wolf? If I have no legal standing as a pack wolf, Mira said, then I cannot use Matebond law. Fine. But there is another path written into those same statutes. Rowan's hackles rose. Mira, don't. She ignored him. I call upon the ancient right of challenge, she declared, voice ringing out. As a wolf wronged by an alpha, I challenge Rowan Blackridge for dominance. The room froze. Challenge. Single combat. No weapons. No mercy. Win, and she would take everything he owned. Lose, and she would die. The king's smile was slow and dangerous. At last, he murmured, someone remembers the old rules. You can't be serious. Rowan hissed once the initial uproar died down. Mira stood alone in the center of the chamber, hands clenched at her sides. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might beat out of her chest, but her voice was steady. I've never been more serious, she said. King Theron leaned forward, eyes glittering. The challenge is witnessed and logged, he intoned. Alpha Rowan Blackridge, will you accept, or will you concede your territory and standing to this Omega you dismissed as unworthy? The trap snapped shut. Rowan's beta, a broad-shouldered wolf named Dane, shook his head frantically from the sidelines, silently begging him to refuse. Nobles whispered behind jeweled hands. An alpha who backed down from a challenge, especially from an Omega, would never live it down. Rowan's jaw flexed. I accept, he said at last, voice tight. Shifted combat, no weapons. Moonrise Arena. 7 nights from now. So recorded, the king said, visibly delighted. Until the challenge, both wolves are under royal protection. No one may interfere. Mira exhaled slowly. 7 days. 7 days to turn a quiet archive Omega into someone who could at least make the fight interesting before she was torn apart. As the court dissolved into chaos, guards approached to escort her out. She caught Lisa's eyes one last time. You traded me for safety, she said quietly. Now you can watch the consequences. Lisa reached for her, but the guards were already moving Mira toward a side door, away from the gawking nobles and Rowan's simmering rage. In the corridor, the captain of the royal guard cleared his throat. Lady Ashfern, he said formally, as if she were someone important. The king has ordered that you be given temporary quarters and access to our training facilities. Mira, she corrected numbly. Just Mira. I'm not Ashfern anymore, remember? The captain's mouth twitched. Very well, Mira, he said. Is there anything else you require to prepare for your suicide attempt? Information, she said hoarsely. Everything you have on Alpha Rowan's fighting style. And any records about unusual bloodlines that survived the Purge War. The captain blinked. Planning to win? He asked. Planning not to die an easy death. Mira replied. If I'm going out, I want every Alpha in this kingdom to remember my name. And somewhere deep inside, that old stirring in her bones whispered that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't planning to die at all. The Tower of Reflection sat on the eastern wall of the royal citadel, overlooking the city and the dark forests beyond. It was where nobles were sent to think about their mistakes instead of being executed for them. It seemed the king had decided Mira qualified. Her room was simple, a bed, a desk, a narrow window that let the moon in. A training yard lay below, where warriors sparred with blunted blades. For 2 days she watched them, memorizing footwork and timing, before the guard captain finally dragged her down to join. You've never been in a real fight, have you? He asked as she fumbled through the first drill. Not the kind that ends with someone unconscious, she admitted, ducking too late and catching a practice staff to the ribs. He grunted. Then we have a week to teach you how not to die in the first 30 seconds, he said. Lovely. They trained until her muscles screamed. She learned to read an opponent's shoulders, to move where they weren't instead of where they were. It wasn't enough, and they both knew it. At night, alone in her tower room, Mira pored over old scrolls the captain had smuggled up from the restricted archives. Records of bloodlines that had once commanded storms, wolves whose eyes glowed silver instead of gold, families hunted to extinction because they made kings nervous. One name kept appearing over and over. Moon-crowned. A line of wolves said to be able to command the loyalty of packs with a thought. Wiped out during the Purge War 2 decades ago. Mira traced the ink with trembling fingers. Her dreams had always been full of silver crowns and burning halls, a woman's voice singing in an older tongue. Lisa had called them night terrors. The scrolls called them memories. The knock came on the third night, soft and certain. Mira opened the door expecting the guard captain. Instead, an old woman stepped in as if she owned the tower. Her hair was long and white, braided with bits of bone and dark crystal. Her eyes had the kind of depth that made Mira's wolf flatten itself instantly. Oracle Sarah, the guard captain said from the doorway, bowing his head. As requested. You may go, Sarah told him. Her voice was calm, but the air itself seemed to listen. When the door closed, she turned to Mira. So, she said, looking her over like a puzzle. The last Mooncrown pup finally surfaces, and she's an Omega who thinks reading law books in the dark is a rebellion. Mira's mouth went dry. Excuse me? Sarah snorted. Child, I cast the binding that hid you, she said. You think I wouldn't recognize my own work? The room tilted. Hidden from what? From every Alpha who would have killed you in your cradle, Sarah replied briskly. Your grandmother died buying you enough time to grow. Lisa Ashfern found you half frozen and agreed to raise you as her own, under one condition, that you never remember who you are until you're strong enough to do something with it. Mira sank onto the bed, legs failing. Who am I? She whispered, Sarah's expression softened for the first time. Your true name is Mira Mooncrown, she said quietly. Heir to a bloodline that once made kings kneel. And if you want even the slightest chance of surviving your challenge, we're going to have to break the rest of that binding and wake your power up. Mira stared at her. And what happens? She asked. If we do that and I can't handle it? Sarah smiled, all teeth and moonlight. Then you'll die before Rowan ever lays a claw on you, she said. But if you can handle it, little Omega. Her eyes gleamed. Then every alpha who ever thought you were beneath them is about to learn a very painful lesson. The Tower of Reflection wasn't truly a tower at all, more a forgotten spine of stone jutting from the eastern wall of the citadel, half swallowed by age and moon vines. As Commander Jace escorted me up the winding steps, the air grew colder, quieter, almost expectant. This place used to house condemned nobles, he said over his shoulder. The king repurposed it. Says wolves think more clearly when surrounded by their own echoes. I huffed a laugh. Or their regrets. He didn't deny it. The top floor was a single round chamber, a narrow bed, a scarred wooden desk, a tall slit of a window overlooking the entire kingdom. The moon hung pale above the city, silver light spilling across the floor like it was trying to reach me. You'll train here, Jace said, dropping a stack of scrolls onto the desk. Sleep here. Read here. And try not to die in the first 10 seconds of the challenge. Encouraging. I'm a soldier, not a poet. He crossed his arms. You invoked an ancient right, Omega. That puts you under the king's protection, but it also puts you under the kingdom's eye. You have 7 nights. Use them. He left before I could ask the 100 questions threatening to spill out of me. Alone, I brushed my fingers across the scrolls. Rowan's combat patterns. Arena layouts. Old wolf laws. Everything I'd need. Everything I wasn't sure I could ever master. I unrolled the first scroll, and froze. On the page was a map. Not of the arena, not of the capital. A map of the old bloodlines. Names crossed out with red ink, sigils burned into the parchment. Families wiped out during the Purge Wars. Packs whose wolves had dangerous gifts, charmsingers, bonecallers, moon-touched. The last page held a name circled in black ink. A name I had never spoken aloud, but had whispered in my dreams since childhood. Mooncrown. My breath left me in one slow, stunned exhale. Why would Rowan keep this? Why would he mark this page? Why? Tap. A sound rapped at the window. Soft. Deliberate. I turned. A raven sat on the narrow ledge, midnight feathers gleaming like oil. Its eyes glowed faintly silver, not natural, not accidental. It cocked its head at me. Then it spoke. Well. Not exactly. But a voice slid into the room, curling into my mind like smoke. 7 nights? The voice rasped. 7 truths. I stumbled backward, heart punching against my ribs. Who's there? The raven blinked once. You are not what they think you are, Mira Ashfern. And neither is he. Heat prickled across my skin. He? Rowan? The raven's feathers shuddered as if amused. Your death is not written yet. Change your fate. Wake what sleeps. And then, like a candle snuffed by invisible fingers, the presence vanished. The raven launched itself into the night sky, a shadow swallowed by moonlight. I stood trembling in the silent room, the map still open behind me, the inked circle around Mooncrown burning into my vision. The kingdom thought I was an orphan Omega with no pack, no power, no chance. But tonight had cracked something open. And someone, was pushing me toward a truth I wasn't ready for, but couldn't ignore. I closed the window, exhaled slowly, and whispered into the dark. Then I'll wake it. And the moon outside the tower brightened, as if it had been waiting centuries to hear those words. Sleep didn't come easily in the Tower of Reflection. I lay awake long after midnight, staring at the ribbon of moonlight across the stone floor, the raven's message echoing inside my skull like a trapped heartbeat. Wake what sleeps. What did that mean? What exactly was sleeping inside me? By dawn, exhaustion finally dragged me under, but not into rest. Into a dream. The kind I hadn't had since childhood. I stood in a vast silver hall with no walls, no ceiling, just endless moonlight stretching into forever. A woman waited at the center. Tall. Radiant. Her hair flowed like liquid starlight, her eyes twin silver suns. She wore a circlet shaped like the phases of the moon. Her presence made my wolf lie down in awe. Mira, she said, voice soft but shaking the world around us. You survived long enough. Now you must remember. Remember what? I whispered. Her expression flickered with grief and pride. Who you were before they hid you. Her hand brushed my cheek. Who you will have to become if you want to live. Light exploded. I gasped. And woke. I sat up, heart hammering, drenched in sweat despite the cold morning air. The dreams slipped away like fog, but one detail remained sharp. The woman's circlet. Moon crowns. The same sigil circled on Rowan's map. A knock rattled the door before I could breathe properly. Up, Commander J sparked. Training starts now. He marched me outside to the practice yard at the base of the tower. The morning air smelled of stone dust and frost. Other guards glanced our way, some curious, some pitying, one or two outright hostile. Jace tossed me a wooden staff. Show me how you hold it. I gripped it. Upside down, apparently. He sighed like a man reconsidering all his life choices. 7 days, he muttered. I've trained puppies with more promise. I'm trying, I snapped. He raised a brow. Try quieter. Move your feet. Hours passed. My palms blistered. My shoulders ached. Every mistake he pointed out felt like another reminder of just how wildly unprepared I was. Again, he said for the 20th time. I'm going to die. I muttered. Probably, he agreed cheerfully. But less quickly if you keep moving your damn feet. When I finally collapsed onto the training mat, sweat dripping down my spine, Jace dropped beside me, actually dropped, with the stiff groan of a man twice his age. I'll say this, he grunted. You don't give up easily. I can't afford to. No, he said quietly. You can't. I looked at him. Why are you helping me, really? He considered that for a moment, gaze drifting toward the sky. Once, he said slowly, there was a wolf everyone dismissed. Too soft. Too small. Too quiet. He paused. That wolf grew into someone who changed the fate of entire packs. I blinked. Who? Jace's lips curved slightly. The king. I stared. Rowan's father, King Thorian, had been dismissed? Underestimated? That seemed impossible. Jace stood and offered me a hand. The world loves to bet against the small ones. Makes it more entertaining when they win. Before I could respond, a shadow fell across the yard. My breath hitched. Rowan. He stood at the far end of the stones, arms folded, eyes locked on me, not mocking, not furious. Studying. Jace leaned in and murmured, Ah. And here comes trouble. Rowan walked toward us, boots crunching on frost, every inch of him carved from cold dominance. Guards bowed as he passed, birds seemed to shut up just from the weight of his aura. He stopped 3 steps in front of me. You're training, he observed, voice unreadable. No, I said, lifting my staff. I'm rehearsing how to beat you. His jaw flexed, once. Not in anger. In something else. Something unsettling. Then don't waste time, he said, eyes flicking to Jace. She needs better opponents than guards who pity her. Jace bristled. She's learning. She's dying in 7 days unless she learns faster. My stomach tightened. Rowan stepped closer. Too close. Close enough that I could feel heat radiating off him despite the cold. His voice dropped low enough only I could hear. Don't think rejecting me makes you invisible, Mira. It was supposed to. I shot back. His eyes flashed, storm gray and furious, but beneath it, something like regret. I didn't want this challenge. But now that you've demanded it. His breath ghosted my ear, ruining my heartbeat. You'd better learn how to survive me. And just like that, he turned and walked away, cloak billowing behind him like a dark wing. I didn't breathe until he disappeared through the archway. Jace whistled under his breath. Well, he said, clapping my shoulder. Looks like the Alpha King plans to haunt your nightmares personally this week. He already does, I muttered. But deep in my chest, where fear and fury tangled together, something else stirred. Something that felt a little like destiny. And a little like waking up. Rowan's footsteps had barely faded when Jace rounded on me like a storm given legs. What? He demanded. Was that? What was what? I said, wiping sweat from my brow. He jabbed a finger toward the archway Rowan had vanished through. That. Him. Showing up here like an omen. Talking to you like you're not the Omega he just publicly rejected. He was warning me, I muttered. Or trying to scare me. Trying, Jace snorted. Being the key word. But that wasn't fear. Not from him. I frowned. Then what was it? Jace hesitated. Long enough to make my stomach twist. Conflict, he said at last. Alphas aren't supposed to hesitate. Especially not kings. But that wolf walks like a man who made a choice he's regretting in real time. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Because I didn't want to think about Rowan's regret. I didn't want it anywhere near my mind. I'd done the impossible. I'd rejected an Alpha King back. He despised me, dismissed me, discarded me. I refused to let my wolf ache for scraps of emotion now. Let him regret whatever he wants, I said tightly. It won't matter when one of us is dead. That's the spirit, Jace said dryly. Now get up. What? We trained for hours. Fine. I'll carry you into the arena unconscious. That'll make for a historic footnote. I groaned and pushed to my feet. Every muscle protested. Every breath stung. But something inside me, some stubborn, furious ember, refused to go out. We moved into advanced drills. Footwork patterns, defensive spins, accelerated reflex exercises. For the first time since coming to the Citadel, my body started to move without hesitation, like it remembered something I didn't. Again! Jay sparked. I struck. Blocked. Pivoted. Dodged. Something inside me hummed. A strange thrum under my skin, like the moon itself was tuning me like a string. You feel that? Jace asked sharply. I froze. Feel what? That. He pointed at my chest. Your aura just flickered. I don't have an aura. Everyone has an aura. Yours just doesn't behave like it should. I tried to laugh it off, but even I heard the hollow note in it. That's comforting. Before he could respond, a soft ripple of cold washed over the training yard. Then, a woman stepped out from behind the pillar at the yard's edge. Not walked. Not approached. Stepped, like she'd been standing there the whole time and reality simply remembered her. She wore simple robes the color of night sky. Her hair fell in loose waves down her back, silver threaded through black. Her eyes, gods, held so many centuries they almost looked heavy. Jay stiffened. Oracle. So this was the infamous Lunar Oracle. The king's most dangerous advisor. A woman whispered to be half wolf, half moonlight. She looked at me. Not at my face, not at my posture, at me, like she was reading the shape of my soul. You woke it, she said. My blood turned to ice. Woke what? She stepped closer. The air crackled faintly around her, like starlight held in human shape. The latent blood, she said. The old inheritance. The reason your dreams are not dreams. My pulse stumbled. Dreams. Silver halls. The moon-crowned woman. What inheritance? I asked. The oracle's gaze softened with something that almost felt like sadness. Child, she murmured, you carry the remnants of a lineage the kingdom tried to erase. A bloodline that once commanded storms, loyalty, and truth itself. Jace inhaled sharply. Moon crown. My knees nearly buckled. I'm nobody, I whispered. I'm an Omega with a temper. You are an Omega by nurture. The oracle corrected gently. Not by birth. The wind picked up, swirling dust around my feet. The air shimmered faintly, barely visible, around my hands. Power. Trying to surface. Trying to breathe. How do I control it? I managed. You don't, she said simply. Not yet. First, you must survive the awakening. A cold pulse ran through my chest. Awakening? The oracle nodded. In 3 nights, she said, under the crescent moon, your dormant power will begin to break free. And when it does, your body will not know if it is being reborn or destroyed. My heart dropped. And if it destroys me? Then Rowan Draven will win without ever lifting a claw against you. Jace swore under his breath. I swallowed hard. And if I survive? The oracle smiled. Slow, knowing, terrible. Then Mira, the Alpha King, will no longer be the most dangerous wolf in that arena. Night in the Citadel always carried a hush, as if the stone itself was holding its breath. But tonight the quiet felt different, charged, coiled, watching. I lay awake in the narrow bed, staring at the ceiling long after Jace had retired to the guard barracks. The oracle's words replayed in my head like a slow-moving storm. The awakening will feel like rebirth or ruin. 3 nights. If you survive. A delightful lullaby. I turned onto my side, pulling the blanket tighter around me. My skin tingled, like the air was brushing fingers along nerve endings I had never used before. Something inside me was waking up. Something that wasn't supposed to exist. A soft knock echoed at the door. I sat up immediately. Jace? I whispered. No answer. The knock came again, gentle, almost hesitant. Every instinct screamed to stay where I was. But instincts had lied to me before. I padded quietly to the door and cracked it open. And there he was. Alpha King Rowan Draven. Unarmored. Unmasked? Unaccompanied. He stood barefoot in the corridor, his dark hair tousled, his shirt half unlaced as if he'd left his chambers in a rush. His storm-gray eyes flicked over me, searching for injuries, reassurance, something he didn't deserve to seek. What are you doing here? I hissed. His voice was low, rough around the edges. I needed to see you. I opened the door wider but didn't step aside. Because? He exhaled sharply. I can't stop thinking about what you said. I said a lot of things. Most of them were rude. His mouth twitched, just barely. Not rude. Honest. I crossed my arms. You rejected me. And you rejected me back. Rowan murmured, before I could explain. Explain? My chest tightened. What is there to explain? You humiliated me in front of your court. Rowan's jaw clenched. His wolf bled at the edges of his scent, restless, remorseful, tangled with something I didn't dare name. Mira, he said softly, you felt the bond as strongly as I did. It hit me like a wildfire. Like a promise I wasn't ready for. I wanted to run from it. I did run. I stared at him, stunned for a heartbeat. You didn't run. I snapped. You crushed it. Rowan swallowed hard. His voice dropped to a raw whisper. I thought rejecting you would sever the connection. Make it easier. On you, I said. Easier on you. His silence was confirmation. I made a mistake, Rowan said, the words scraping like something ripped from his chest. A mistake every instinct in me is warning me not to repeat. My pulse stumbled. Mira, he said, stepping closer. I didn't come here to ask forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I came because your aura is flaring like a star about to collapse. What's happening to you? The question sliced through me. He sensed it. My power. My unraveling. You tell me, I said bitterly. You're the one who rejected a mate whose blood you clearly don't understand. His eyes sharpened. So it's true. The oracle spoke of a dormant lineage. She told you? I demanded. No, Rowan said, voice tight. I overheard her speaking to the king. They're worried. About me? He nodded. Because they've seen what awakening bloodlines can do. They're afraid. I barked a laugh. They should be. Rowan's gaze softened. I'm not. Liar. His jaw flexed. Fine. I'm terrified. But not of you. Then of what? Of losing you, he said simply. The words hit like a blow. Rowan. He lifted a hand, but didn't touch me. His fingers hovered near my cheek as if the air itself was sacred. You shouldn't face this alone, he murmured. Let me stay. Anger, longing, and instinct tangled violently in my chest. No, I whispered. You lost that right when you cast me aside to protect your pride. Rowan flinched. Actually flinched. Please, he said, voice cracking on the edges of alpha control. I just need to know you're safe. I'm never safe again, I said. Not from what's coming. And not from you. The air between us tightened, hot, electric, dangerous. Then I stepped back and closed the door. Not hard. Not angry. Just final. And through the wood, I heard Rowan whisper something that didn't feel like it was meant for me. I won't let you die. Morning came like a hammer. Not sunlight. There was barely any of that in this ancient stone alcove, but a pounding headache, a pulse of heat under my skin, and a restless thrum in my bones I couldn't quiet. The awakening was getting closer. My wolf was pacing inside me, claws scraping the walls of my ribs like she wanted out now. I rolled out of bed, breath sharp, fingertips tingling as if threads of silver were stitched beneath my skin. Even the air felt different, thicker, aware, responding to me. When I pulled open the door, Commander Jace nearly punched me on reflex. Oh good, he muttered, lowering his fist. You're alive. Amazing vote of confidence, I said. You were screaming half the night. My stomach twisted. I don't remember screaming. That's what worries me. He stepped aside. The Oracle wants you. Great. Nothing said, relax, like being summoned by a centuries-old seer before breakfast. We walked through the eastern courtyard, sunrise just beginning to stitch gold into the sky. Wolves stared as we passed, not with malice, not anymore, but with something quieter. Something like belief. The Oracle stood under the archway of the moon shrine, her silver hair braided with bones and tiny charms that chimed like distant bells. When she turned toward me, the air shivered. You saw him, she said without greeting. My heart tripped. Rowan? He came to my chamber last night, yes, but... That is not what I mean. Her eyes glowed faintly. You touched the dreamways. A cold thrill slid down my spine. The what? Places between worlds, she murmured, stepping closer. Where power sleeps and bloodlines whisper. You walked there, Mira. I didn't walk anywhere. I slept. No, the Oracle corrected gently. You shifted, not your body, but your essence. Jace swore under his breath. Is that dangerous? For anyone else? Yes. Her gaze returned to me. For her? Necessary. A soft wind swept across the courtyard, carrying with it a scent I shouldn't have recognized but somehow did. Burnt cedar. Cold iron. A howl that wasn't sound. My knees nearly buckled. What was that? I whispered. The Oracle's expression tightened. Your ancestors. They're trying to reach you. Why now? Because your blood remembers the challenge is near. Her voice dropped lower. And because you are being hunted. The wind died instantly. Jace's hand went to his sword. By who? The Oracle didn't blink. The Council? The King? What we feared. No, she said. Not them. She reached out and pressed her palm to my chest. The warmth of her touch spread like molten metal through me. You have stirred something ancient, she whispered. Something that will not stop until it claims you. Fear coiled tight in my gut. What is it? I asked. Your wolf, she answered. Your true wolf. The world tilted. My wolf is me. Not anymore, she said. The awakening has fractured you. Your wolf is evolving faster than your human mind can contain. If you don't learn to anchor her, she will break free of your body. Jace paled. As in, leave her? Rip her out, the oracle corrected. I froze. Ice. All ice. That can happen? It is already happening. She placed both hands on my temples. Light, moonlight, flared between her fingers. I gasped. And suddenly I was not in the courtyard. I was somewhere dark. Somewhere vast. Somewhere alive. The ground beneath me gleamed silver, rippling like water and stone at the same time. Mist curled around my ankles. And ahead, a wolf stood waiting. Not the wolf I had always been, small, gray, forgettable. This one was colossal. Shadow and moonfire. Eyes like molten silver stars. Power simmered beneath her fur, cracking the ground with every slow exhale. She stared at me as though she'd been waiting centuries. Mira. The voice hit me from everywhere at once, inside my mind, beneath my skin, whispered through every thread of existence. I swallowed hard. You're me? She stepped forward, the world trembling beneath her paws. I am what you were meant to be. Her gaze pierced straight through me, stripping away fear, lies, doubt. But you, the wolf said, her voice edged with warning, are not ready for me. My heart slammed against my ribs. Then teach me. Help me. The wolf's ears flicked, not in annoyance, but amusement. You think I choose? You must earn me. How? Her lips peeled back, revealing teeth carved from moonlight itself. Survive. Awaken. Become. The ground cracked beneath me. And I was yanked back into the courtyard, gasping, collapsing into Jace's arms. The oracle steadied me. You saw her, she murmured. I nodded, shaking. She said I had to survive? No, the oracle whispered. She said you have to awaken? Jace knelt beside me. Mira, what does that mean? I looked up at both of them, my breath unsteady, power surging under my skin like a storm trying to be born. It means, I whispered, voice trembling with something halfway between terror and destiny, that the fight with Rowan isn't the real battle. Jace's expression hardened. Then what is? I stared at my trembling hands, at the faint glow rising beneath my skin. The fight, I breathed, is against myself. And deep inside me, my wolf answered with a low, ancient growl. One that promised the awakening wouldn't wait much longer. The night of the challenge arrived heavy and electric, as if the moon itself were holding its breath above the kingdom. From my tower balcony, the arena looked like a pale stone crater waiting to swallow me whole. Commander Jace adjusted the straps of my ceremonial sash. You don't have to do this, he murmured, though he knew the truth as well as I did. I do, I said. Not for Rowan. Not for the crown. For me. The oracle stood behind us, staff glowing with faint silver veins. The awakening is nearly complete. But remember, do not fight your wolf. Anchor her. If she breaks free, you lose more than your life. I nodded, though terror rolled beneath my ribs. When we stepped into the arena, the world roared. Wolves in their thousands, alphas, betas, omegas, packed the stone tiers, their voices vibrating the air. But all the noise seemed to mute when Rowan entered from the opposite side. He looked different. Not dangerous. Not proud. Not cold. Just resolved. The moon cast a silver halo around him as he crossed the marble floor. Mira, he said softly, just for me. I want you to know, win or lose, I'm proud of you. My throat tightened. We'll see if you say that after this. King Aldrich stood, magic amplifying his voice. Let the challenge begin. Rowan shifted first, his wolf form massive, dark-furred, powerful. He circled me slowly, giving me the chance to shift as well. But I didn't shift. My wolf was already clawing at the inside of my skin, pushing, demanding to be freed. I held my ground, breath trembling. The oracle's warning echoed inside me. Anchor her, or she takes control. Rowan lunged. Instinct flared. Wolf, power, fire, and I barely dodged. His claws grazed my arm, and the contact was enough to ignite the awakening. Pain exploded down my spine. My knees buckled as silver light burst under my skin, cracking through me like fissures of moonfire. The crowd gasped. Mira? Rowan's voice shook through the bond. I'm fine. Lie. 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 My wolf surged. Let me out. She slammed against the walls of my mind so violently I screamed. Rowan froze mid-step, fear rippling off him. Not fear of me. Fear for me. Mira, stop fighting her, he called. She isn't your enemy. But she was. Or maybe I was. My vision blurred, silver consuming the world. My wolf began to separate from me, her shape flickering like a raging flame peeling away from a candle. The oracle's voice tore across the arena. Mira! You must bind with her, now! Rowan sprinted toward me, but Jace grabbed him back just in time. Don't touch her while she's splitting! The world shrank to pain and silver fire. My wolf's voice thundered through the void. You deny me. I'm scared, I whispered. You hide from me. I'm not strong enough. You are me. The truth hit like a blade to the heart. I wasn't meant to control her. I was meant to join her. So I reached out, mind to mind, soul to soul, and stopped fighting. Stopped running. Stopped doubting. I'm yours, I whispered. And you're mine. The wolf roared, a sound that split the sky. Then she stepped into me. Or I stepped into her. Or we simply became one. The light flared. And when it cleared, the arena fell silent. Where I had stood trembling moments before, a massive silver-black wolf now stood, eclipsing Rowan in size, power rolling off me in waves that made the marble crack beneath my paws. Gasps rippled through the crowd like wind through treetops. Rowan bowed instantly, lowering his head to the stone in a gesture few alphas ever gave. Submission. Respect. Recognition. Mira, his voice whispered into my mind, awed and tender at once. You're extraordinary. I stepped toward him, not with dominance, not with threat, but with clarity. This fight was already decided. I pressed my forehead to his, the universal signal of peace among wolves. The king rose shakily to his feet. This challenge, he began, is over. The oracle finished. She has awakened. She has won. I shifted back to human form in a shimmer of moonlight. Rowan caught me before my knees buckled, holding me as though I were something sacred. Mira, he whispered. You defeated me without striking a single blow. I looked up at him, exhausted, glowing with leftover power, and terribly, beautifully mortal again. I didn't come here to kill you. What did you come here for? To stop running from who I am. His hand trembled on my cheek. And who are you? I smiled, tears burning hot. An Omega who became a queen. The arena erupted with sound, roars, howls, cries of disbelief and hope. Wolves who had never looked twice at me now bowed as I passed, their heads lowering instinctively, reverently. But I stopped only once, at the king's feet. You tried to erase wolves like me, I said quietly. Those days are over. King Aldrich's ancient eyes softened. Then lead them, Mira Silverblood. I turned to the crowd and raised my chin. I accept the borderlands as my territory, I declared. A sanctuary for rejected wolves. A home for the unseen. A place where no one is powerless again. The roar that followed was deafening. Rowan stepped beside me, not above, not ahead, but beside. Is this goodbye? He whispered. No, I said. It's space. Time. And maybe one day, a beginning. He smiled, quiet, hopeful, humbled, and bowed his head. When I walked out of the arena, the moon followed me, painting my path silver. I was no longer the Omega who begged for worth. I was the wolf who earned it. And the kingdom would never forget my name. Thank you for listening. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment what your favorite part of the story was.